The labeling theory. In sociology, labeling theory is the view of deviance according to which being labeled as a deviant leads a person to engage in deviant behavior. Originating in Howard Becker's work in the 1960s, labeling theory explains why people's behavior clashes with social norms. In the early 1960s, a group of sociologists developed what soon became widely known as labeling theory. And it's actually a version of symbolic interactionism, a well-known sociological theory about social behavior in general. According to one researcher, for example, teenagers who are publicly labeled as juvenile delinquents for having been convicted in court for an offense are more likely than their non-labeled peers to get involved in delinquent activities again. Another researcher, however, finds that although they are often ridiculed in school as sluts, druggies, or white trash, poor teenage girls with a relatively strong bond to their mothers or grandmothers do not engage in promiscuous, unprotected sex or use alcohols and other drugs. Perhaps all that this means is to reinforce Lemert's notion that secondary deviance does not occur until or unless the person involved accepts a deviant label, and that a person can many times reject the label and abstain from deviant acts. Critiques. Labeling theory cannot logically deal with hidden deviance and powerful deviance. By insisting that no behavior can be deviant unless labeled as such, labeling theory inevitably implies that hidden deviance, particularly the kind committed often in secrecy by powerful people, cannot be deviant because it is, by definition, unknown to others. I included examples of two people who were able to hide their deviant behavior for quite a while due to their powerful positions in society. They committed deviant acts behind closed doors, and they were always able to keep their victims quiet until one day where they met their match. Roger Ailes, who is the founder and former CEO of Fox News, was accused of sexually harassing his employee. The employee, Megan Kelly, is a political correspondent, and if she didn't come forward, then his deviant acts would have remained hidden and he would not be labeled deviant by society. Another example I included in this video is Bill Cosby, who was a well-respected actor in society, and it wasn't until recently that all his deviant acts came to light when about 60 women came forward claiming that he sexually assaulted them. This didn't happen just yesterday. He was sexually assaulting women for over a decade, but he was never labeled as a deviant because he was always able to keep his victims quiet, which in turn caused the public to be unaware of his acts. Many sociologists have criticized labeling theory for not being able to answer the question of what causes deviance in the first place. This criticism misses the mark, though, because the theory is not meant to explain what causes primary deviance, except that it can be used to explain how labeling causes secondary deviance. And a couple other criticisms of labeling are that it assumes that there is no free will and that everyone accepts the label given to them. It doesn't account for reasons for committing the deviant behavior, and there's no definite proof to suggest labeling leads to deviancy amplification. Marxist argues that labeling theory does not do enough to ask who creates the label.